When you hear a title like Children Who Were Raised by Animals, you may begin thinking about a cute puppy being raised by a dog or something similar. However, that is not at all the case. Over the years, there have been several humans raised in the wild by animals that had no idea what they were getting themselves into. For the most part, one of the best ways to teach your child about the responsibilities of everyday life is to get them a dog, cat, or other small pet. This can do wonders for a child and their self-esteem. But what if the tables were turned? What if a human were to be raised and cared for by an animal? Let's find out. But before we get started, be sure to hit that like button and ring the notification bell for more videos. Oksana Malaya. When young Oksana was a little girl, her parents realized they would not be able to care for her. Both of her parents were alcoholics and wanted nothing to do with a young girl. She was born in an incredibly poor area of the world, but she managed to live at home until she was 3 years old. As she continued to grow, she was banished from her family home and was not allowed to return. She had nowhere else to go, so she roamed the streets for many months, taking up with the dogs that would wander by. Amazingly, no one bothered to help the young girl. Instead, people passed her by and left her there to fend for herself. That is, everyone except the dogs she had come to know and love. The dogs eventually led her to a shed that was located a short distance away. She would live in this shed with the dogs until she was 8 years old. She would eat what the dogs ate, play games that dogs played, bark, and walk on all fours like a dog, and so on. When police were finally tipped off that there was a young girl who had been living with a pack of rabid dogs, they jumped into action and did their best to save her. She had formed such a strong bond with the dogs that when the police first tried to rescue her, the dogs would not allow it. They protected her and fended off the police. Thankfully, she was eventually saved and is currently 37 years old, though she has several serious illnesses that require constant attention. Bello and the Chimpanzees. Bello was the name given to a boy who was raised by chimpanzees. He was found in Nigeria in 1996 when he was just 2 years old. Rescuers found out that his parents had abandoned him when he was young because he had physical and mental disabilities. This is normal in this part of the world, and the Fulani tribe doesn't take kindly to children with illnesses. He had been living in the wild with chimpanzees for about a year and a half before he was seen and taken back to society. Once he was brought home, he was incredibly destructive and would misbehave. It was almost impossible to calm him down, and he had learned to think, act, and behave like an average chimpanzee. It would take his new family about 6 years before he would begin to act like a normal human, but he still had flaws that made daily life incredibly difficult. Sadly, in 2005, when he was about 10 years old, he passed away. Alex and the dogs. This young boy's story is super strange and very tragic. A boy known only as Alex was abandoned by his mother when he was 5 months old. We don't know why his mother banished him from the family home, but police found him a short while later. He was brought into a local children's home where they fed him, clothed him, and did their best to take care of him. Though he would manage to escape time and time again, it seemed like he was happier living on the streets than being surrounded by people who cared for him. He would make his way out of the home and join a dog pack that lived on the streets with him. He learned to act like a dog and communicated like one as well, growling at everyone who came too close to him. Police say that they believe he was sharing food with the dogs for at least 3 months, and that he would drink milk from a mother dog who had just given birth to puppies. This sounds like an incredibly odd life for a child to lead, but he was insistent on remaining in the wild. Who knows? Maybe this young boy knows something we don't, and he's finally figured everything out. Experts say that his only chance of survival will be if he allows himself to be taken in by a human family. John and the Monkeys. The case of a boy named John is one of the most disturbing cases I've ever heard. This young boy's mother and father got into a fight when he was just 3 years old. His father took things way too far and, in a violent fit of rage, claimed the life of the boy's mother. John saw this happen right in front of him, so he ran away and found himself in the care of a nearby tribe. The boy didn't want to be cared for and preferred to live in the wild, so a tribesman helped him to do so. After social workers found out what was going on, they did their best to help John, but he refused to allow himself to be captured. The people of the tribe also protected him against social workers and wouldn't let anybody come near him. When he was finally found, rescuers say that his body had become covered in hair and he had wounds and worms all over his body. He was eventually taken into a rehabilitation center where he did very well for himself. He was cleaned up and taught how to speak and sing. He is a very talented singer and now tours with the group Pearl of Africa Children's Choir. Andre and the Watchdog. A young boy named Andre had a terrible upbringing after his parents gave up on him when he was a few months old. He had hearing and speaking problems, and it seemed like his parents wanted nothing to do with him. His father was an alcoholic, and his mother was a deadbeat, so the boy took up with the family watchdog, and the dog helped raise him for a short time. He was eventually found by a team of social workers who took him in and did their best to bring him back to health. He did very well throughout his recovery, and he began learning how to interact with other people, though he still has several dog-like habits that the workers are trying to help him with. After taking him in, it only took workers 2 weeks to teach him how to walk upright, and before long he had begun to eat with utensils. Police are currently looking for his parents, and we hope they'll be punished for what they did to this poor young boy. Lyoka and the Wolves. We don't know much at all about this young boy, other than what the Russian police have mentioned. They say the boy is named Lyoka and that he managed to escape from a Moscow health clinic. According to police, he was raised by wolves, but we don't know how or why. We can assume, like most other kids on this list, his parents weren't around to teach him how to behave, so he likely ran away to live with wild dogs. He is considered extremely dangerous and lived with a wolf pack in a forest in Kaluga. He never learned how to speak or communicate, and rescuers weren't even able to finish his evaluation before he ran away. He did not respond to human contact and ate off the ground like an animal. They also believe he could be infected with viral diseases, and anyone who sees him is urged to stay cautious because he may attack. The Wolf Children, Kamala and Amala. The fate of these young girls is disturbing, to say the least. The girls were found back in 1920 in India by a director of an orphanage. This man had dedicated his life to saving the lives of young children who had no other options, and he vowed to do the same for Kamala and Amala. The girls were found living in a she-wolf's den. The director says that it seems like they grew up alongside the wolf puppies. When they were found, they were about 7 years old. We don't know how long they had been living in the wild, but it's safe to assume that they had been there since the youngest girl was born. They were both in extremely poor health, and they showed all the telltale signs of being raised by wolves. They refused to allow themselves to be dressed, and they would fight and attack anyone who came too close to them. They would also refuse to eat any sort of food that had been cooked, as they were used to living off of whatever they could find on the ground. What makes them extremely interesting is that they had a few skills that most humans never have. They were able to smell fresh meat from a long distance away, and they developed the ability to hear frequencies that are far outside of the normal human range. This meant that they had not only been raised by wolves, but in essence, they had started to become them. Amala sadly passed away a short while later. The The girls had spent all of their lives fighting off adults, but after Amala's death, Kamala became less aggressive and allowed humans to teach her how to walk upright and how to speak. Dina Sanichar and the Wolves. The story of Dina Sanichar is very similar to the story of Kamala and Amala. He was discovered by a group of hunters in the 1800s. The hunters were shocked when they saw the young boy following a group of wolves into a den. They did their best to help the boy, but unfortunately, that meant shooting and killing his wolf mother. They then captured Dina and brought him back to civilization, hoping that they would be able to rescue him and keep him healthy. The boy did decently well for a while, but he would never fully recover. He was unable to speak or communicate with humans, and it took him a very long time before he was willing to eat cooked meats. He passed away in 1895. Natasha and the Dogs. A young girl named Natasha was locked in a room with dogs and cats for several years. Her parents never interacted with her any more than they did with the animals, and she was left to fend for herself, learning the ways of the animals. The animals taught her how to eat and drink with her tongue, and she eventually learned to walk on all fours. What's very sad about her case is that she was kept a secret from the public. None of the girl's neighbors even knew she existed, as she was never allowed to leave the home. Thankfully, she was taken away from her parents and is being cared for in a rehab center for young children. We hope that she will be able to make a full recovery. The police also became involved in her case and did their best to arrest the girl's parents and make sure they faced punishment for what they have done to this poor girl. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like button and ring the notification bell for more videos.